All right, there we go. In today's video, I wanted to talk about, I guess the broader topic would be friendship. Um, but yeah, let's just get into it. Um, I've had a conversation with a friend, like a week ago or something, um, about like how friendships are formed, right? Or rather, Um, or let me start this way. If you think about your friends, I hope you have friends because having friends is very important. But if you think about your friends and how you started to become friends, right? I mean, I guess there is not really a um, clear starting point usually where you can say, "Oh, I am friends with this person right now," right? But that's a whole nother topic on its own. Point being, if you have friends or ever started to be friends with someone, um, then chances are it will usually be because of um, circumstantial circumstances. No, just like circumstances, right? So let's say you go to school together, right? You do some kind of activity together. Maybe you go to university and there are a person in your dorm or whatever, right? So basically, anything that kind of forces you to kind of draw closer. Usually, and usually enables a friendship or provokes a friendship, right? And there's even like this interesting study, I think, where it's like if you move into a dorm with somebody, um, the closer that person is, like just like physically closer, or like to smaller the room is, you have to like live together. Then the more likely it is that you will also be friends with that person, right? Which I mean, kind of yeah, same thing with like school or whatever. Like if you're in a class of like 20, 30 people and you're never forced to interact with others, then maybe you will not really start to become acquainted, but maybe you are sitting next to each other, or the teacher forced you into a group project or whatever it is, right? That's usually some kind of circumstance that provokes that friendship, I guess. But what I've been thinking is that when I think about my friends and my friendships, it's the same thing essentially, but it's kind of crazy how pretty much all my friends I have right now I know from school, and what made me think about how weird it is that so many people, or like my friend group is kind of like a social network that kind of yes, basically just based off the fact that we all essentially went into the same class, and in that class, these kind of relationships kind of intertwined, and then suddenly we all became friends. Like not just one person became friends with another person, but the whole network itself, right? Like you're not also friends with your friend, but also friend with your friend's friend, right? That kind of thing. Um, but I think it's kind of crazy, in a sense how the little of I feel like there is such a little pool of people I've kind of had the opportunity to be in such a kind of friendship group with, but nevertheless I ended up becoming friends with them, right? So what I'm trying to say with this is like, um, let's say it weren't those people I am now friends with that I encountered, but maybe I was pushed into circumstances with another group of people, right? Would I also become friends with them? Because I feel like in our head it's always like friends always seems to be something very exclusive, right? You can only be friends with so many people, and you know, usually you always think like, oh, I have like I have like a maybe a big social network, but only a selected chosen few happen to be my friends, which is my own volition, and I just decided that some people are just worth spending more time with than others. But what I'm thinking is that, maybe it's not actually you who makes that choice. Maybe to some degree, yes, but maybe it's more just like the circumstance of, you just happen to be with another person, and then you just kind of happen to be friends, right? Um, which kind of begs the question to me, like, um, now this is kind of tough to say, but I have this thing with like friends and or like friendship rather, where I'm treating it kind of like an like every other obsession of mine, where I sometimes I like really really spend a lot of time with a person, and I think about that person a lot, and a lot of my energy and my thoughts go into my relationship with that person, and then but then just as fast as like these kind of feelings come, they also like pass, and I also kind of lose interest after a while, which makes me sound like a complete psychopath right now. But think about it, like, how many friends have you made in your life where it's like you feel like they're like the best person on earth or whatever to you, and then after a while you just kind of fall out of it, and you just suddenly are not really interested in that person that much anymore. As tough as it may sound, but if a person is not no longer mentally stimulating you, then you will probably end up not really being friends with that person anymore at some point, right? Yeah. Which yeah, I guess it's kind of weird, but that's honestly just how it is in a way. And you know that's how most friendships end. There is like a percentage of friendships that really end with like this kind of drama-like situations where, like you see in TV series or stuff, where it's like, oh, you did like a bad thing, or we got into like a big fight, and then we are no longer friends. In reality, how it usually goes is that the friendship just kind of starts to fizzle out after a while. Fizzle out, is that a word? You know what I mean, right? It's like a slow burn. Like you just, I don't know, you just kind of no longer really feel like you are that interested in keeping up with that person anymore. Of course, there are also like external factors, maybe like you're moving away or stuff. But I feel like that is like um, maybe even like just the most common way of just ending a friendship, where it's like not really like, oh, our friendship is ended here now because I said so, but just like slowly and surely it just dwindles out, and you no longer keep up with each other, right? And yeah, it's kind of weird, because what I'm thinking, and going back to the topic of like, oh, how many people in the world are there that you might actually be like great friends with, that you will maybe never meet, or that was the point I was trying to make. Like, hey, if like I just happen to be friends, or like if I happen to be in a situation where I could make friends 3 times, and uh, one of those 3 times I just happen to become friends with someone, then there are like, in other words, there are like so many people on this world that I could be friends with in a way, right? Because again, we all, I or like that's all I always thought it would be, maybe that friends is like something very exclusive, and it's like, oh, like only these selected few people are my friends and they're my close friends because I just happen to I just want them to be my close friends. But like oftentimes I think it's more just like a um more like a situational thing, or more like a matter of circumstance. And what it also leads me to think is that maybe there's like, if like many of the friendships I had were not, or I currently have even, are after a certain point maybe not stimulating anymore. Could it maybe have to do with the fact that maybe I wasn't actually that great friends with that person, not as much as I thought it would be. And this is meant to say like that means that either of us is like a bad person, or that makes us bad people, that it makes them bad people, that I am no longer interested in them, or that I'm a bad person because I am no longer interested in them either, right? But I just wonder if maybe there is actually someone out there, or like it doesn't even have to be like that one person, right? But if there are like some people in the world that if you happen to be friends with them, they would actually give you like that continuous mental stimulation, and they would actually be like, if we kind of engineer our way into friendships, that like they're like the perfect fit to like your mental desires. But the problem is that, like I said, I think that just because of circumstance, I mean, obviously you will only know so many people in your lifetime, but also just like the circumstance, like, let's say you have two neighbors, and the one neighbor is just a nice guy, like a cool, nice guy, and the other person, the other neighbor is like, would be like your designated soulmate, like you're literally like your best friend that you could ever have, but whether you start to, whether that one friend or the other friend starts to like stumble across your way, or like knock on your door and say hello or whatever, is a complete chance, right? And not to mention that, how many soulmates are there in the world that you could have, right? It's probably, all things considered, still like a very high amount. But if you're talking about percentages, there are probably still like a lot more people that maybe you don't even like, or maybe that you are just like quote unquote cool with, right? And I suppose that's also, you probably also like met a lot of people that you're just cool with. Like you can't exactly pinpoint, why exactly you think you couldn't be like real friends with them, but you just think they're cool and you don't mind them, but you don't also like seek them or seek to be closer to them, right? Which again could also just be due to other factors, like that you just don't know them that much, right? And yeah, that's also like a big pet peeve of mine when it comes to meeting people, that it's just so hard to know what people are like interesting, or like interesting from my point of view, which I mean like people that again would give me that like mental stimuli, and that I would feel comfortable to be like good friends with. You just don't know that, especially because it's also like pretty hard to like know that if you're just meeting them for the first time, because it's usually like the things that make up a good friendship, or that build a friendship, like trust and sharing experiences and sensitive feelings with each other. You usually don't do that with strangers, right? But maybe you should be more open to it, because I think that's the kind of thing of like, if you share something, then another person is also more likely to share something. And if you show or if you show them that you are vulnerable in some way or another, they might reciprocate those feelings or not. And if they don't, then like, hey, maybe this person is just not someone I would be friends with, right? But yeah, easier said than done. But the main thing that just kind of that I just kind of think about. And I guess it's also like maybe you shouldn't just obsess too much with these things and just think like, hey, I do have friends, so I should be happy with what I have and just try to keep up with what I have. But again, my ADHD brain or whatever the fuck it is like, okay, I have to be obsessed with something, and if I'm not obsessed with it, then I'm probably falling out of interest with it. Um, which again, I know it makes me sound like a psychopath that I'm I'm not trying to like analyze friendships and like feelings in that way, but I've just come to realize that's kind of how my brain works. Like sometimes I will just hang out with someone every day, or I would want to hang out with them every day, um, or not at all. And that's like, usually the other person is like kind of more in the middle, like, hey, maybe we can hang out on the weekends, and yeah, maybe that would be enough. But for me, it's like, no, I'm feeling like a connection with you right now, and I want to hang out with you like every every day essentially, which is, I know that's obviously like a lot and not something you could always arrange. But the other side of the coin is like that I will just, from one day or another to another or whatever, or after a few weeks, I will just never ever like, check, never ever like seek out to hang out with that person, and then that person might seek out to hang out with me and be like, hey, what the fuck happened? Like, I thought we were friends. And that's not what I'm saying, by the way, but that's what I imagine what they're thinking. Like, hey, why is this guy not why is this guy not reaching out to me anymore? I thought like we were like friends, and just a while ago he wanted to hang out like every day, and now he doesn't want to hang out like at all anymore. Like, did something happen? And it's like, no, nothing happened, I guess, but you know for some reason that's just how my brain works, and I don't want to be like that, so I'm trying to put in the effort for people that I think are worth the time, which is very hard, by the way, to find out in the first place, because sometimes you're friends with someone, but again, it's the whole thing, like, you're friends with someone, but I don't know, sometimes you just don't know like how far. Doesn't mean that like they're like a bad person or whatever, but like sometimes you just don't know how far that connection or thing, like how much you really feel like you can connect to them, because again, sometimes you're just, I guess casual friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you're just not, that's why I said, like, usually you only have like one best friend, right? That's kind of the point. You are usually not like super super close to like 20 people, right? um but the question is, what if like one time you're feeling like you're best friends with that person, and another time you're feeling like you're best friends with that person? Like, what does it tell you? Does it uh you know kind of tells you like, hey, maybe it's more like a um I don't know, like a situational thing. Like sometimes you just don't really feel like you can connect to a person, and then you feel like you can connect to another person more. But what I'm essentially thinking is like, is there a way for me to find out, or a person for me waiting out there? I mean, they're probably not waiting, but is there like, will there like ever be a point, which I hope, I guess that's like love or whatever, but will there ever be a point where I'm with a person and I think like, I would, even after years and years, I'm thinking, what, I just, this person makes me happy, even though I've been with them for so long, and I don't feel like I need to like exchange them for something new, right? Which is kind of what I'm doing right now. As hard as it sounds, I'm kind of not with every friend, by the way, but I've just, like I said, I just come to realize that that's how my brain works. I'm thinking like, okay, like now I have this friend, okay, good for me. And then after a while, I feel like, I don't know, that I need to talk to I need to talk to someone else, right? But that's usually when like my old friendships kind of start to crumble, because again, I'm not really putting in any effort, and effort and time is like the number one thing to keep a friendship alive, right? So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is someone out there waiting for me, but maybe my soulmate is like in fucking India or whatever. Then I will probably never meet him, right? But hey, like I said, I think we also maybe we're also not as picky as we think when it comes to like close friendships and stuff. And maybe there are actually a lot more people that could be potentially really close to us, but it's just like circumstance just doesn't really push us in that direction. So I guess you have to, make that jump yourself, maybe. But that would be too hard, so we're not gonna do that. Yeah, anyway, that's all for today. Bye.